Oh, here we go. Okay, now we're recording. It's an inside job with Fiona again, and I'm here with Alison, and we're going to talk about how the stars and the moon and sort of all the special times throughout the whole year, the pagan festivals, have an influence on us. So we're talking about an inside job, what goes on inside, but sometimes we're influenced from the outside. So this is what Alison is an absolute expert on. And seeing as we've just had a beautiful full moon yesterday, and for once we had clear skies, and I must admit that before I went to bed last night, I did some moon bathing, and I was recommended to do this years ago because it is a feminine energy, the moon, and I just couldn't take my eyes off it. It was absolutely stunning.
Yes,
so what
completely.
was the moon all about? Yeah, cool.
Completely. I mean, it's a supermoon, and it's the last time that will happen in this particular calendar year. And you know, I'm always very careful to qualify what a year is, because whether we work with the calendar that we've been given, that we have to stick to for our appointments and everything, the solar year, of course, is slightly different, because of the Earth's wobble, we have to put an extra day in every 4 years so that our clocks make sense. And this is one of the things I love about the universe, that actually it gets on with its own thing. Whatever's going on, it gets on with its own thing.
And nothing interferes with it, does it?
No, it just carries on. And in the same way as we have the sun moving through the 12 zodiac signs throughout the course of a year, we'll call it a year, but I've already qualified it. Also, of course, the moon has approximately 13 cycles in a year. So that feminine energy of the moon also is getting on with her own thing as well. And the planets, of course, all make their patterns. And that's another thing. With the planetary patterns, there will never ever be one exactly the same as when I started the beginning of my sentence, you know, because they're constantly all changing at different rates and different orbits. But this particular full moon in Scorpio, it'll be exact at around about lunchtime today, London time. And when it is exact, and this is something which I always say to anyone who's thinking about learning more about the planets, about astrology, about how the rhythm of the world works, when you spot something that's happening at a moment, kind of be aware of what's going on around you, because we're all unique, and the patterns the planets make, and in this instance we're talking about this amazing full moon, which just is so incredibly beautiful, it will mean something, it will happen or nothing. And that's always another interesting thing. If there's, and that's something I've asked people in my group to have a look out for, if there's an empty feeling where you're waiting for something, that's also worth noting.
Waiting for something to land, you mean?
Yes, well, that container, you know, that feminine container,
vessel
of the moon, because that's a very feminine principle of containing and of being a vessel waiting for something.
We hold so much. If you think about the woman, the womb as well, this is where we hold all of our emotions.
And life.
Yeah.
You know, the beginning of life.
Yeah.
So that container, that's very feminine, and it fits very well with this particular full moon because it is in Scorpio. So it's across that Scorpio Taurus, the sun in Taurus, moon in Scorpio. It's across that axis. And also the sun is next to Mercury right now. And what that means is that we can be available for insights, for messages.
I liked our last conversation because you also said, you know, with the full moon, you're illuminating what's going
Yeah.
on in your particular life. You can illuminate your business, you can illuminate yourself. But what I also find coming up to a full moon is kind of like, whoa, everything is just bigger and grander and like so in your face. So that's why often arguments come up, because they just can't be hidden anymore. Certain things come up that you just kind of go, I just can't ignore that anymore. So often those kind of things come up around about a full moon as well. Things that
Absolutely.
the world, the universe, your soul, as I talk about, you know, your journey to do with your soul, is just illuminating for you to kind of go, why do I keep thinking about that person? Why do I keep getting irritated about this particular thing? Because it's coming up for you to deal with. This is also a great time coming from the full moon to the new moon. These 2 weeks is a great time to sort of, what's been illuminated, what can we let go of? And sometimes it's really, really difficult for, especially women like maybe you, I don't know whether you're like this as well, but overthinkers, you know, like what can we let go of? What are we still holding on to? What we're still going over and over and over about? Wishing we did things in a different way. Wishing we be treated in a different way. What are we worried about in the future? You know, all these things that we're just overthinking about. So, you know, a detox time is not just about cleaning your digestion and, you know, changing your food and starving yourself. A detox for me is more about how you can change the way you're thinking, or be more aware of what's prominent for you, what's coming up, because you don't have to think about things all the time. When it's ready to be dealt with, it will pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I spoke before about how at a full moon time, because the moon doesn't have its, she doesn't have her own light. She doesn't have light. And it's reflected light from the sun. And so when that moon is opposite the sun, which it is right now on that Taurus Scorpio axis, it's reflecting full beam, full headlights, the sun. And that's why you can gain so much insights on an inner level.
I liked your words there, reflected back from your son, because I've got 2 boys. And you always say that, you know, children come in and they teach you so much about yourself. And, you know, being a mother, being feminine, and here are 2 sons, often, reflecting back to me exactly what I need to be thinking about. So whatever, you know, funny stories like, why haven't you done your homework yet? Why are you still not doing your homework? Why is this not happening for you? What is it? Why won't you take responsibility? And I'm thinking, I don't want to live like this. So what's really going on? What is it that I'm not doing that they're reflecting back to me that's getting me so wound up and irritated and hot under the collar, and thinking, yes, there are some things I haven't been doing recently. So I love that you said that about the sun reflecting back to the moon, full headlights, and that's what it feels like sometimes. You know, they have the ability to sort of push your buttons and really sort of like, but you're only resisting yourself, you know. So this is an awesome subject. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, that absolutely is that solar lunar. I mean, that's the language of it, because it is that sense of, what am I being shown here, and how do I feel about it? and that sun moon, that you know, and that's one of the first things to get into balance when you start working with the planets, that sun moon. And then you can fill it in with all the other planets and energies that you want to look at. But by looking at that particular, okay, it's a full moon, it's in the sign of, the sun is in Taurus, the moon is in Scorpio, and I've said that Mercury is next to the sun, which it is, so it should make it, if we want to, and of course it's all a choice, whether we're conscious of our choice or not. And that's another thought for that particular full moon solar axis.
Being aware of actually what you're thinking, because I mean, talked a minute ago about sort of the overthinking mind, and I'm obviously, you know, one of the works that I do is kind of help people pull away from the overthinking mind, because if we keep thinking about something, be sure that we'll attract it. But you said earlier on, you know, so what's being shown to you and how do you feel about it? And so many of us refuse to feel what we're feeling because it's too complicated. Don't know how to deal with it. But if you're asking us to kind of like now, especially with this full moon, what's being illuminated, what's, full headlights, it's like one of the questions I'm always asking is like, that's fine. Okay, so how does this make you feel? God, I'm irritated. So these are all head words. But when you bring it down into the body, but how do you feel about it? And you go back up into the head and you're using head words to describe it. But how does it feel? What does the energy feel like in your body? And where do you feel it? Oh, wow, yeah, I probably feel that in my solar plexus or in my stomach, and that area where you feel everything in the stomach area, solar plexus, sometimes in the chest, and then it comes up to the throat and out. But the feeling of it, so the temperature of it, the color of it, the smell, the taste, the sensual things. Because when we're in our head, we don't allow ourselves to feel. And there's some great techniques to sort of bring us out of our head and into our bodies. And maybe some of you are going, what's the point of feeling? What's the point? Well, here's something.
Yeah.
If you've forgotten how to feel, your food won't taste very good. You won't enjoy the full reason of why you're on this planet and all the senses that are available to you. You'll be missing out on the birds. You'll be missing out on the scent of the flowers. You'll be missing out feeling sensual in lovemaking. Lovemaking, oh my God. If you're overthinking, where are you? You're not there at all. If you're eating and you're overthinking, if you're overstimulated by TV, screens, too much noise, conversation, you won't enjoy the food. So afterwards, you'll still be hungry. So you'll still be wanting to fill yourself up because you'll be feeling, women, this is so interesting, unsatisfied and unfulfilled. This is often what comes up just at the full moon, but sometimes we can't fathom it out because it's just too much to bring on. If the arguments are coming up and all those kind of things, hopefully what comes up for you is this question in your head and just go, I just don't want to live like this anymore. What's going on? What do I need to do to be able to live a fulfilled life?
And I think if we ever had an opportunity to really be exploring that, it is over this particular full moon. I'm finding it incredibly interesting what's going on with conversations that are unfolding around this time of this particular full moon, which we mustn't lose sight of, is Taurus, Scorpio, Mercury up there, because there's a lot of conversations about, dare we, how do we feel about going outside?
Yeah, what's going to change?
How do we feel about going to a cafe?
Yeah, limbo, yeah.
How do we feel about the feeling, the moon? How do we feel about interacting with the sun and other people? And there's a lot of conversation around that. And it, again, an awful lot of it comes down to our own inner world and how we feel about it.
It is, doesn't it? It illuminates whatever the subject is right now. Maybe there's something else that you need to just have a think about. Like, what am I really frightened of? Am I frightened of being out in public? Am I, what are my main fears? What am I overthinking about? What's just preying on my mind the whole time?
Well, if you bring it to the full moon solar, is it about what do we really want? Because it's Scorpio energy, so it's what are our deepest desires?
Oh, nice.
What do we really want to do? Do we really actually want to be going to a cafe and having a cappuccino?
Yeah, but why are we there? Why are we there in the first place? What's the intention?
Yeah. Is it a part of what we really want to be doing? And actually, if it is a part of what we really want to be doing, saying, yes, absolutely, I want to celebrate this. But it's that knowing, and it's that, if you remember I said about the container, which I do feel is a big part of this scorpionic full moon energy. It's being aware of our container and starting to build a picture, because nothing is ever just 1 minute. I mean, I said at the start, the exact is this lunchtime, and that is a really good time to to think and to just be a little bit aware and think, oh, I wonder if that's what it means to me, because that's how we build our own layers of understanding of our own astrology.
Okay, so a very good question. I mean, maybe around that time is this really what I want to be doing? Does this fulfill me? Is this something that I enjoy? You know, so really the deeper questions about
absolutely.
Is this really what I want?
And also being aware that it can be that you want that container, you know, that you actually want to go through this. Oh, I think I'm going to wait and see what happens over, because astrologically, and this is the language I have to come back to, so but astrologically, we're coming into a time where over the next few months, 2 months particularly, a number of planets from our perception here on Earth are going to be going retrograde. We've also got an eclipse in June too. So we've got unfolding potentials to really add some layers to what we want, to really start to think about those questions and think about how we want to be living our life.
I love that, because it's like you've got the sketch, so like you've got a colouring in book and you've got the outline in black and white. So what you're asking people to do now, and I love this analogy of being able to colour in. So where's the detail? You know, so what you're asking them to kind of like, okay, well, if that's what you want, fine. But, you know, in the work that I do as well about creating the next phase of, you know, who you want to be in the next phase of your life. It's like if somebody comes to me and they say, well, I would like to lose some weight. I have to lose some weight. Okay, but how much by when? And get the details in there. And, well, how much by 1 month, by 2 months? And they kind of go, oh, I don't really want to look at it like that. Okay, fine. So what do you want to be wearing? You know, you colour it in. Or what event are you going to? And how do you want to feel? So you're colouring in the detail.
You are, and being aware of life ever unfolding, and that's one of the things which I think we all can be aware of when we start to really think about the planetary energy. And I'm really conscious at the moment because we've just had, with Beltane, we had the first day of summer, 1st of May, and it's like that first inkling that summer's coming, you know, that nature's getting abundant. And I mean, oh gosh, it's really at the moment because there's so little traffic out on the roads that nature's having a wild time. It's just loving it. But it's that abundance, but it's also that awareness.
Tell us about the
turning.
The May Day, because I remember back at school that was probably one of my favourite. You do the May dance, you know, those kind of things that we used to do at school. You know, they probably don't do that anymore. You know, with the maypole and the ribbons and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, pagan festival. So what's it about? What does it represent? Because this is springtime. This is the fastest growing growth time, and it can be the fastest growth time for you as well, for realization.
Absolutely. Well, Beltane is the festival which is in between, if you like, it's in between that spring equinox and summer solstice. So the festivals are agricultural and astrological. So if you think about Beltane as being the cross quarter in between the equinox and solstice, and it's around about the 1st of May. It would have been a day when people felt they could celebrate. And it was celebrating the bounty of the 1st of summer, that colour was coming back. And you'll see in the maypole lots of colours being used. It's also...
And movement, weaving.
Absolutely, weaving the two together. And a particular spiral dance where the boys go one way and the girls go the other way, and you get that weaving together. And it can be seen as a festival of fertility, because we're getting that real growing Venus energy coming through, which is just all of the Empress energy and the abundance. But it would be a celebration of colour, of fun, of laughter. 1st of May was the only day that you would be allowed to have May, the hawthorn, blossom in your home, because it was considered to be bad luck at any other time of the year.
Right. Okay.
So it was a sociable, or it is a sociable time. And after Beltane. The next festival you see, of course, is summer solstice, when the sun is high in the sky,
Mm-hmm.
and the sun moves into the sign of Cancer, and we're really then starting to see crops getting ready
Yes.
as we move on towards
Yeah.
Lammas and
I
harvest.
remember something really funny that used to happen in our house on the 1st of May.
Yeah.
And I remember my parents telling me, oh, like 1st of May, you kind of like, you know, the young girls go out and they put the first, you know, the dew of the grass on their
Yeah.
face. So I remembered this, and I don't remember how old I was. So I went out and I went, oh, okay, dew on the face.
Yeah.
And then I sort of came in, and maybe later on at lunchtime or something, I'd said, I went out and put the, you know, the first dew on my face this morning. And Dad's like, I fed the grass yesterday. Like, oh my God, toxic.
Yeah, I mean, it is, there are traditions around, well, each of the festivals, but yes, bathing your face with the dew of the first day of summer was supposed to be very, very good for your complexion, you know, and so, and there's also the saying of cast ne'er a cloud till May is out, and a lot of people think that that's to do with the month of May, you know, moving into June, but actually it's not. Cast no cloud till May is out means that once the May is blossoming, once the hawthorn is blossoming, we know we've got warmer weather coming. And so that's when you can start to look at your
I
swim
like all this because it means that you don't really, life goes on, doesn't it? I mean, this is what we're talking about here, you know, the summer calendar and all the rest of it. Life goes on regardless. If you look at the animals in the fields, they're not being affected by anything. They're just kind of like day by day. You know, and we humans, we've been on the planet for a pin drop, a speck, you know, and the planets and the earth and the sun have been doing these rotations infinitum, forever and ever and ever, as far as we're concerned. And we've been here on the planet. If you look at the scale, we've been here for like, whoop, that, you know, but we are supposedly, we think, the most intelligent creatures on the planet. I mean, you know, ignorant or what. And the fact that, you know, we think we are in control, we have all these governments, we're earning all this money, we're doing all these kind of things, but we've been here for, but life goes on regardless, come or go, sickness or health, life goes on regardless. The planets still turn, the sun still comes up.
Nature still has its cycles.
Yeah.
And you know, yes, we've been here for such a short while, but we are also incredibly strong as human beings, and we're curious, we have curiosity. Now, I mean, animals have curiosity too. I mean, you know, you watch a cat and they have great curiosity. They want to know, and we want to know, and we have that awareness innately inside of us when we watch time moving, we watch the seasons moving, we watch what's happening, and then we look to what's going to happen next and what the next cycle will bring. And it's like when we get to harvest time, and we'll keep some of the corn in the way of a corn dolly ready to plant for the seeds for the next year, because it all leads on. And nothing stops, you know, nothing is one moment and then, oh, that's it. You know, it's all a cycle. And I think once we start to see it in that way, and we start to think, well, okay, this is my cycle, this is what I'm doing, this is how I'm evolving or growing, because that's what we're doing, we're evolving. We might not actually use that word, but
innate condition is that we do grow.
Yeah.
We're always wanting to grow. So, you know, there's never enough. So if you've just had a pay rise, if you've just had a new car, if you've just moved into a house, if you've just got a new partner or a baby, you know, that's a phase. And then comes, oh, what's next? I remember when I moved to France and I had my baby and my partner and my house and all the rest of it. What I hadn't done was create my next phase.
Yeah.
So everything started to sort of crumble around me because I hadn't really shown my spirit. I hadn't really sort of got clear in my head, what's next? How am I going to work this through the year? How am I, you know, I didn't use my imagination to kind of create what was coming next. And that's what I'm always very conscious of, not in a greedy way, but just like, oh, what would feel better than this? What would be awesome? You know, what would feel great? What is it that I'm looking for to feel fulfilled?
One of the questions I get asked a lot when I talk about the planets and I talk about astrology and I talk about the rhythm of the year, which I'm so passionate about, is, yes, but how can we use it? You know, it's all very well saying it, but what can we do with it?
Yeah.
Well, we can do a lot with it, because just by being aware, if we are in a solar, sun-based growing phase, which of course we are at the moment, and so we can look at what we want to grow from I'll use the word material, but I don't necessarily mean I want 2 cars rather than 1,
Yeah.
you know, but it's what you want to better
Yeah.
of your environment, or what you do, how you act. But there's also the lunar one going on as well at the same time. And the joy of that one with the moon is we get to do that every 4 weeks or so.
Yeah.
Because we've got the growing part of the moon, which of course we're in its fullness right now. And then we've got the resting phase of the moon as the moon's energy light diminishes towards that dark of the moon. So that can then be on the emotional or the intuitive or the imaginative levels. So we have huge prompts from the universe.
I think they're great sort of markers, aren't they? To kind of, you know, oh, right, full moon, oh, quarter moon. So, I mean, I work as best I can in the garden with that as well. You can see the root days or the flower days or the fruit days. So it just gives you little prompts, nice word, that, you know, they're not rules, but they're just like, oh, here's an idea. How about, you know, doing that for those kind of plants? And it's not like you have to do things every single day. You don't have to overthink it and plan it, because if you're aware, it just naturally rolls. And that's the way I think that we're meant to be living, rather than overthinking and over planning, which often goes completely against the energy of the stars and the moon and the sun and whatever else is influencing us from the outside.
Yeah, totally. And when we choose to be with that rhythm, it's easier. Not going to say that it's easy, because we'll all get our challenges and come up against that, those triggers, but it's easier if we're with the rhythm of the energy, because then we're more in flow.
That's what we're all after all,
alignment,
isn't it? To feel a little bit easier, a little bit, you know, more in the, we just keep hearing this, more in the flow. I'm just like, oh, everything's just flowing, everything's working out perfectly, everything worked out just as I wanted it to.
Yeah. And I guess one of the lessons as well, because obviously when we're born we have that unique planetary pattern in the sky, our birth chart is completely unique to each of us. It's being aware of what feels right for us at a time, and then allowing that to flow forwards
without force.
Yeah. And when we do that, then we can start to get an idea of who we are, but it's just an idea.
Would you say then, Alison, taking it right back to basics, it's really understanding the moon first, the movement of the moon, you know, what the full moon represents, not just, you know, to do with the light and all the rest of it, but what's being illuminated, what emotions are coming up, what's coming up for you, and then, you know, watching it sort of like just fall away. So how would you say that would be, you know, how could we interpret that?
Gosh, there's a lot in that one.
I know.
Well, as women, I do feel, maybe that's not quite the right word, because the lunar is the feminine. If we look at the solar as the masculine and the lunar as the feminine, although nothing's quite ever as straightforward as that, of course, but we need to be much more aware that we have those different parts of us.
Yeah.
In Western astrology, particularly, we're very solar based. You know, we all know our star sign. In Eastern astrology, for instance, if you look at Vedic astrology, it's very lunar based, and often a name will be given based on the moon. You know, it's a very different way. If we can start to draw everything together and also then start to look at, and I mentioned earlier that Mercury is right next to the sun right now, so it's giving, if we choose to listen, some great messages, because Mercury is the messenger in mythology. He carried the messages from the gods to the humans and from the humans to the gods, and so we can listen to the messages from the Mercury point of view. So by adding these different layers in, we can start to understand who we are. But it's being aware, and one of the simplest ways of being aware is to watch the moon in the sky. Watch the sun, watch the moon, and start to see how you feel at these different phases, because that will immediately open up insights. And that's what I'm saying about this.
I think the more sensitive you become to even just the moon, you feel, oh, something's going off. Oh, well, I wonder where the moon is right now. Oh, right, okay. And then you start to understand and sort of put things together and prepare for it even sometimes.
Yeah. And one of my biggest messages is that I want everybody on this whole planet to go out and look at the moon. That's my message. And that's because I feel if we do that, when you go and look at the moon, you actually step outside or you open a window and you see it, you get a sense, first of all, of the immensity of the universe, and also, secondly, just how connected we all are, because we're all on this planet. We're all on this little blue planet that's traveling through space. We're so lucky we've got our own moon, we've got our own star, the sun, and we're held in place by gravity. And that just in itself is amazing.
Do you think then that looking at the moon, what you're saying there, is just giving us a perspective?
Yeah. I feel it helps understand where we are, our position.
Mm.
And it also just reminds us of that bigger picture. It reminds us of time moving. It reminds us that we're all evolving and growing and moving, and that what happened at a certain time yesterday has already moved on. So I think it's that reminder as well, and that's a very lunar word, a reminder.
Yeah, because they keep coming back, don't they?
Yeah.
And the planets keep coming back too.
Yeah.
So we just had the May Day sort of celebrations on the 1st of May. Was there anything else about the May Day celebrations or before we come up to the summer solstice, which is 21st of June?
I would say this time, this early summer, if you want to call it early summer, it's about celebrating the bounty. Mm-hmm. It's about being aware. It's about, and of course, bounty is within as well. When we look at wealth as a word, and that fits very well with the Taurian sun, wealth is so much more. Wealth is, yes, it can be money, but it can be how wealthy we feel with what we're doing.
That's funny, because I've just been going through all of that again. I mean, I'm a Taurus baby, so I've just been going through all of that just like the last couple of weeks and thinking, grateful, but it's not about wealth. Wealth is just a container for how grateful I am about, like, wow, look at the vibrance of that green on the tree. Look at listen to the sounds and the perfume when I'm walking up the road, the honeysuckle that's coming through the hedgerows and all those kind of things. And the wealth that I have my boys with me, and the wealth of the fact that I have the garden to sort of play in. And
that's real wealth.
I mean, what would be a great exercise is something that I would normally give people, like 101 things that make you happy, because often women that I deal with, they're kind of like, they've lost the fun. So it's like 101 thing that you feel wealthy about, that sort of brings wealth and fulfillment, going back to the sort of the full moon, fulfillment, like 101 things that make you feel fulfilled, wealthy, and you're so grateful for. What a great exercise to kind of just back into focus all the things that you have, all the things that you've achieved already, all the things that make you successful.
And the things that you want to take on with you. And maybe that also fits with this particular full moon energy, because, what actually don't we want anymore? You know, and let go of that to make room for more wealth to come in, that container that I spoke about, you know, and so that you can start to see how uniquely wonderful each one of us are, and how we can give ourselves permission to change.
This is all very accepting, isn't it? I mean, I don't want to go on for too long, but this is all very sort of just accepting where we are, who we are, what we've got, what we're working towards. And I think sometimes the hardest thing with surrendering, because this is basically some of what we're talking about here, is surrendering to the fact that life goes on. We are going to be influenced. We can't control everything. But, you know, before we can surrender to something, if we're overthinking things, we've just got so much on our plate, so much that we're dealing with. How on earth can we get out of our overthinking, controlling mind so that we can just accept that? I've been working with animal communication techniques for quite a long time now, just for that main purpose. Because if you're not allowing your mind this space, funny, I'm talking to you about space anyway, aren't we? Planets and all the rest of it. My choice of words here are quite funny. If we're not allowing ourselves to sort of soften the mind, space, bring the mind into the body, which is just unfeasible for, like, I know for myself, it was unfeasible to sort of simplify my life so much that I wasn't overthinking everything. Because when you're overthinking, you're vigilant. You're on the ball all the time, and your reptile brain is engaged. You don't feel safe. You're in survival mode, and you so what we're talking about here is really the act of surrendering, which seems massive when you have so much going on in your life. Whereas Alison's talking about, you know, going with the flow, going with the planets, and everybody's going, yeah, that seems like a great idea, you know, and how on earth can I feel that if all the time I'm in my mind? So really sort of coming out of your mind, going inside and allowing yourself to sort of drop your thoughts away is a fantastic technique that I've been learning to do with animal communication, because otherwise we're just zinging the whole time. Is this something that you allow yourself to do, Alison?
Yeah, because when I looked at the energy for this particular full moon, and I put some thoughts out there for how we could perhaps start to experience it, and I said, and maybe one of them is to acknowledge a feeling of being empty, waiting. It's that feeling of and actually just allowing that, because in itself that's us being curious, you know, being curious, but without no conscious words. And I think that sometimes, if we can allow ourselves into that space where there's no conscious words, but we are conscious of whatever it is,
observing,
then we can start to observe on all the levels. I think observation involving maybe all of the senses. It's not just sight, is it?
That requires you to feel quite safe, doesn't it, in yourself, to be able to observe, to be able to face what's going on. There's sometimes you don't want to face that is being illuminated for you by the full moon. Well, again, Alison, we have had the most, you know,
it's been great
conversation, that so many things are coming up. But what Alison and I really want to do when we talk about it being an inside job is just really simplify things. Because I know that when I had that big bunch of keys and I had so many things to do, I mean, I've still got, you know, a long list of things to do, but I'm much better now at just letting things be. I don't need to do that right now. I can do that when it feels better, or when it's the right time to do it. You don't have to do everything on a Monday morning or keep yourself so busy the whole time. But Alison, what a great conversation we've had again. So thank you very much for that. And let's have you back maybe on the new moon, something like that, so we can talk again about what's happening in the planets, what's going on with people, how the moon actually affects us. I think, you know, if we can simplify it just to sort of let you know what the moon stands for, the quarter moon, the full moon, the new moon, the other quarter moon, because I talk about that to do with the body and detoxing, how it, if you do things at a certain time, you're not going against the energy. So this is what Alison's talking about as well. And we talked about that last time about, you know, working with your business. If you're going against the energy, it's going to be an uphill struggle. And all of us want things to be easier and smoother, less hard work, but more success.
And to feel that inner wealth of knowing that we're doing the best for ourselves and the best for our planet. And once we've got that, once we've got best for ourselves, best for our environment, then actually we're wealthy. We are, you know, that's wealth. That's,
I think something that this lockdown has been proving to everybody is what we really value.
yeah.
And, you know, if any of us kind of say, well, you know, what do we really value? Often it's not the car, it's not the, you know, new decorations in the house, it's not the big fancy holiday. It's the very simple things.
Yeah.
Very simple. It's just being able to sit in a field all day long if you want and just listen to the bees. And, you know, some people might go, oh, that's weird. But those things fill you up for a very long time. Once you know what your values are, if I could go horse riding or just be in a field with a horse or something like that, very grounded, very just easy.
Yeah. I know we definitely we've got to go in a moment, I know, but I'm smiling because I've been really conscious over the last couple of weeks of just how big the bees have got. It's like the bees are becoming so abundant, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Great
I think I
news.
was in the first week of being in this lockdown phase when I was kind of saying, I've seen so many bees. Wouldn't this be awesome if this was just the planet's way of getting us to have more bees to pollinate all our plants and flowers so that the earth could survive? Oh my God, how intelligent is the planet? How intelligent is the universe? So, yeah, absolutely. Bring it on, bees.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alison. I shall love to see you again, and let's talk about things that, you know, what's happening on the quarter moon, what's happening on the new moon through our phases, and how we can stop pushing against that energy and how we can go further with the energy so it just flows. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much, darling.
Lots of love. Thank you.
Bye, darling.
Bye.